GoldSeek TV. I'm Peter Spina, the president of GoldSeek.com, and it's a pleasure to have the president and CEO of Aztec Minerals, Simon Dyakowski. Thank you for joining us today.
Peter, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Great. Thank you for joining us, and it was a great time to have you join us because you recently raised more money in a very attractive financing, actually one of the most attractive financings that you see around these days. You did it without any brokerage help. You did it without any warrants. You did it near the market. So congratulations on that financing. Wanted to find out more about what the proceeds are going towards and talk about these two exciting emerging discoveries you have in Arizona and Sonora, Mexico. So to start off, I think it'd be interesting to get a little bit of insight into the financing and one of the major shareholders that has in the recent year come into the company, that's Alamos Gold. Could you give us a little bit of background why they are a major investor in the company and what is their interest?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was great that Alamos came back in this round of financing. Backing up about 12 months, we did a very substantial drilling campaign at our Cervantes porphyry gold discovery in eastern Sonora, Mexico. And that property is located about 40 kilometers to the west of one of their flagship assets and really the mine that took them from a junior to a mid-tier producer. That's the Mulatos gold mine. So when we pulled a couple of significant discovery holes validating the discovery that we already made there, Alamos took notice and we engaged in discussions, and they came in as a lead order on our big kind of $3.4 million financing last year. So they put up the bulk of that funding. They bought about 10% of the company. And then fast forwarding to today, we just started drilling at our second emerging discovery in Tombstone, Arizona, and we're looking for some funding to complete this program, which is about just over 2,000 meters of core drilling. And although they were primarily interested in the Mexican project, they did also want to come and support our U.S. project. So it was great that they came back and that they're interested in both of the projects that we're doing. And really, they're both primarily at this point heap leach gold targets with some upside at depth at each that we can get into in a bit here. But that's really why they came in. And then the other, rounding out the rest of the financing, we had some strategic investors that wanted to see us do this drilling at Tombstone and wanted it enough that they came in without a warrant and at basically at market pricing. So it's really a testament to the strength of our projects and the great work that our technical team has done over the past couple of years that we were able to get a bit more funding on fairly attractive terms.
Excellent. Yeah, that's very exciting to see them come in. This is a multi-billion-dollar market cap company. So this mine they have in Sonora, Mexico, let's start off with Cervantes. So this is a active gold mine that's, you said, about 40 kilometers away from your project. They're producing, I believe, over 100,000 ounces a year from this mine at the current run rate.
Yeah, it's a big operation. They had an update out a few months ago where they were highlighting that when they put the mine into production, I believe it was in 2005, I think they had a 7-year mine life when they put into production. And if you fast forward 17 years to 2020, they still have a 7-year mine life and they've mined over 2.5 million ounces. So really a standout performer in that part of the world.
So they're very well aware of the area. So let's look a bit more at the Cervantes project. To start off, I think a big aspect of this project is you consolidated ownership of this last year from Kootenay Silver, which was a joint venture. So you currently own 100% of this project now with a 0.5% NSR. So Kootenay is also a large shareholder in the company, but you are now 100% owner of this project. And this project's interesting because it is not because of the grades. It's not a high grade gold project, but it's a low grade bulk tonnage, open pit heap leach potential kind of opportunity, which means, if I understand this correctly, it's a low capex kind of project, which is similar to what Alamos is producing nearby.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In this part of Mexico and in the western U.S., There is the ability, obviously, if the geology and the metallurgy and the topography is correct, that you could actually put in a fairly substantial gold leaching operation on a minimal capex budget. So, for example, we have a neighbor to the south of us called Minera Alamos, and I don't remember off the top of my head the exact capex number that they spent to put their Santana mine into commercial production, but I'm fairly certain it was less than 20 million US dollars. And I mean, they did a really good job of getting that built, on a very attractive budget. So that's really what investors really like about heap leach mining is the fact that it's potentially very low capex. If the ore leaches, it can potentially be very low opex as well.
And
so yes.
And so you've done some initial metallurgy studies on this, correct? You have some ideas.
Yeah, we have. So we've done 2 rounds of bottle rolls, and those tests have indicated that in the oxide groups, we get gold recoveries in the high 80s, so 85 to about 88%. And then in the sulfide groups, we even get good gold recoveries of about 50%, which is attractive from that perspective. So it's early metallurgical testing, but as we continue to drill out the project, we do plan to go and do some more advanced metallurgical study, including some column testing, which is obviously critical for potentially engineering a heap leach gold operation.
Okay, and the setting, the geography, it seems to be quite favorable as well.
Yes, we're right. Actually, both of our projects are in the same belt, really, regionally, and we're right in the heart of the Laramide Porphyry Belt, as it's known. And you can see on our map slide that we're right in the heart of all these very well-known heap leach gold operations. And in fact, they are, although they're located in eastern Sonora, they're owned and operated by Canadian companies. So these include, not only Mulatos, but also La India, which is owned by Agnico Eagle Mines. And that's an interesting story as well. It's right in our backyard and even closer to Mulatos, but that project was really discovered in the mid-2000s by a company called Grade Resources, and they drilled it out from the period of about 2007 to about 2010-11, and then advanced into a scoping study and some advanced metallurgical work and resource updates. And by the time they got to 2011, they were able to sell the whole company to Agnico Eagle for $275 million in cash for what was at that point defined to be just about a 1 million ounce oxide gold deposit at around 1 gram per ton. So a very interesting comparable there, and that was one of the biggest stock market winners on the TSX Venture during the bull run of 2009 to 11, and that's really 40 kilometers away from us. So we'd like to remind investors about that transaction and that whole story, as it was a standout winner, and we're in an area that obviously can potentially produce winners like that.
So that's you're in a good location. You've got majors, Canadian major gold miners around you there. So where are you now with the project? I know that you were doing a stage 3 drill program and testing various targets there. So yeah, let's go more into what stage the project's at and what we're looking at now for the coming coming year. What you plan to do to advance it.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the project to date, we have drilled about 10,500 meters. So we did 17 holes back when we acquired the option from Kootenay, and that was just shy of 2,700 meters. That was core drilling, and that was really one fence along the California Ridge. That's our primary target at Cervantes. And then we went back between 2021 and 2022, and we drilled 37 holes over that time period, basically over 12 months. And that was split about 5,200 meters of reverse circulation and 2,500 meters of oriented core. And this was really designed to help us build our geological model. So the RC drilling was primarily in a grid in order to get some width to the zone and some depth and get some important assay data. And then the oriented core was, again, to produce obviously assays, but also oriented geology and lithologies to help complete the geological model. So we have a very nice grid now over the 900 meters of strike length going from west to east along this California zone ridge. And we have width on that grid of about 200 to 300 meters. But the very, very significant point that I want to make here is that it is still open in most directions along that ridge line. So we think we can potentially expand the drilling footprint to the north and to the southeast and to the northwest in particular. And we have very compelling evidence for that in that the California Norte target, which is a full approximate 600 meters north of that California ridge. We did put 2 drill holes into that over the past couple of drilling campaigns, and they were mineralized. So our next step of work before we go back to drill is we're actually on the ground right now, and we're taking approximately 1,300 samples. And where we're taking these surface samples are on roads that we've built to access various targets. We've put in about 5 kilometers of roads over the past couple of years, which is really critical in this part of Sonora. Let me explain that for a minute. We're looking here at the ridge line where we've been drilling. It's sort of a desert type environment. But what investors should note is that during the summer, there's a very significant rainy season in this part of the world. And this desert turns into almost like a jungle. And it's very difficult to do any kind of groundwork. And we need to do groundwork because a lot of the bedrock is covered by loose rock or scree. So 2 things. We have a dry season right now, which is basically the only time you can send field crews in to really do a good job of going and understanding the surface geology. And we've also got all this fresh rock uncovered by all the roads that we've built. In particular, we put a road in between California North and California, right through the heart of that little valley or arroyo. And that's where we're sampling right now. We hope to get the results from that sampling program back around the end of March and feed that into our geological model, and then come back to the market with a more fulsome drill plan, which we estimate right now would look to be in the range of about 4,000 meters or 26 holes of RC. And that would really help expand, where we think the California zone target can grow. And we could do that drilling, and we plan to do that drilling before the next rainy season, which it's a little bit difficult to work in, but not impossible. So that's the plan. We're finishing up the sampling March, April, and then May, June, we'll be drilling again. And with that data, we hope to have enough information to produce a maiden 43-101 resource estimate at the conclusion of that drilling.
Excellent. I was going to ask about a potential resource, so that would be possible potentially after the next drilling round. When you look at the drill results so far, and it needs to be put into context because this is a low grade but a low capex open pit heap leach kind of scenario. You're getting above the kind of averages you see from other open pit these kind of mines, which tend to grade around 0.5 gram a ton. So you have some of your highlights here from your drill results. So how does this is shaping up compared to other open pits in the area?
It's shaping up very favorably. I mean, it's definitely in the range, probably the higher end of the range of we've kind of looked at it as a 0.4 to a 0.6 grams per ton average in the western U.S. and eastern Sonora for a heap leach operation. So you can see here we've had some results that have been much higher grade than that: 137 meters of 1.5 grams, 165 meters of 1 gram, 152 meters of 0.87. So it's not fully drilled out. We haven't calculated an average grade yet, but we're very optimistic that it's definitely going to at least be at the better end of that range. And one thing, another maybe nuance that we should touch on is the topography, right? I mean, grade is fantastic, but you need to have a favorable stripping ratio, and all of our mineralization is basically from the collar along this ridge line. So all of the overburden, if you will, has basically been eroded away. and we're looking at potentially a very, very low stripping type scenario. So that would help this operation get off the ground with, again, minimal capex. You'd really just be looking at the plant and infrastructure, and not so much any pre-stripping costs. So
So
that's a huge
that's
advantage that
huge.
we have.
That's very nice. So the mineralization is coming up towards near the surface there.
It starts at the collar of the drill holes on almost every drill hole. It's at surface, and in some of our material you can see like we've done a golden soil anomaly map, and it really lights up over these two ridge lines, and that indicates that the gold comes right up to the ground. And in fact, looking right on the ridge, you can see that there's there's more vegetation on the north and the south, and then right along the ridge that there's relatively little vegetation. That's actually due to what's known as metal kill, because there's so much metal in the soil that the plants have trouble growing there. So just another indication of how shallow and attractive this potential deposit might be.
Excellent. So this is preparing yourself for this next drill campaign up north, up across the border, just across the border into Arizona, is your other project, the Tombstone Project, which you have just started drilling at. Again, is that correct?
We have just started drilling there early March, and this project is very exciting as well. It's got some similarities to Cervantes in terms of what it might grow to in the kind of near to medium term. But where it is, and this is maybe a good place to start on Tombstone, is we're 40 miles northeast of the famous Taylor discovery made by Arizona Mining back in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And to back up a little bit there, Arizona Mining used to be known as Wildcat Silver, and they were working on a project called Hermosa, which is an old silver district basically in southeastern Arizona. And they drilled off a shallow silver deposit there, but then started looking deeper, and they sunk a couple of deep holes down around a kilometer below the old silver district, and they've now discovered what is one of the largest new zinc discoveries of the last 20 or 30 years. And it rapidly went from an initial discovery to then being known as the Taylor deposit, known for the geologist that made the discovery, Don Taylor, and was rapidly advanced to a $1.8 billion takeout by the giant Australian company South32. And so they're now developing that. And that's the reason that we initially got involved in Tombstone, was we thought, hey, let's go look for the nearest past producing silver district that's on trend. And there was an opportunity to acquire a 75% interest in the Tombstone Silver District, which is a famous silver district in its own right, just north of Bisbee and Taylor. Mm-hmm. So we got into Tombstone about 5 years ago, and we've now earned a 75% interest in it. And we've been drilling really on more of a shallow target there, because Tombstone was, in the 1980s, was a fairly significant heap leach operation where they took about 250,000 ounces of gold out of the shallow structures. But backing up even further was a modest silver district back between around 1880 to 1910, and a town of about 10,000 emerged around the silver mines. And of course, for those that are familiar with Hollywood and Western lore, there was a famous gunfight that occurred between the lawman Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday against the Cowboys gang, I guess. And so that happened right in Tombstone, and that was really only due to the fact that there were rich silver mines in the district. So we've got 75% of that now, and I'll note that happens to be located on private mining patents, and we own, in our joint venture, most of the key patents in the district. So we've just started drilling, and behind me is a view into the 1980s era pit. What we're doing there is we're drilling in the pit and on the western, basically on the western flank of it, where we've already put 44 drill holes in. And again, we're looking here at the kind of the 0.4 to 0.6 Western USA heap leach model. And this is the initial model that we went into Tombstone with a couple of years ago. And to our great delight, we we're encountering grades that were 2 or 3 times better than that in the same kind of shallow oxide gold silver environment. So we put 44 RC holes into it. Every hole is mineralized. Every hole is bottomed in gold and silver. And now it's our first pass of core drilling. So we've brought in a diamond drilling rig, and now we're coring. We're planning to do about 10 holes in the spring of 2023, winter, spring, get those out to market over April, May. And the intent here is to step out our initial pattern approximately 50 meters to the west and 50 meters to the east, and also to drill deeper. And drilling deeper is really, really important, because that could help us get to the water table, which is where the old timers, before the heap leachers, the old timers in 110, were mining these super high grade enriched zones of silver. We haven't been able to get there yet because the RC rig tends to fail around the water table.
Any indications of how much silver they pulled out back then?
So they pulled out, yeah, we do know, I think it was about 32 million ounces of silver. So it was a modest district. But the really important fact on that is that the 32 million ounces, half of it came out of one mine called the Contention Mine, which is really in the middle of the pit that we now have to develop. So the richest part of the system was running along this north striking Contention fault, and we basically own that. In our joint venture, we do own it.
Okay. And so the last production occurred and shut down, was it about 20-some years ago, 20, 30 years, I guess, the operation there? What were they working on, and where did they end up? So it sounds like you're drilling just kind of beyond where they stopped mining at the open pit, or?
Yeah, that's correct. So you can see we're drilling in the pit, really on the west, on the bottom of the pit. It only goes down about 60 to 80 meters at its depth. There were two periods of more recent modern mining. From between 1980 to 1985, there was a more significant heap leach operation on the north pit. And then between about 89 to 91, they mined some structures along the south pit, that we call it. So that it was limited in scale, and it was completed by two private companies. So that was parked in the early 90s when the price of gold went into a deep slumber. And we're really the first group now, Aztec, coming in 2017, to really take another look at the geological potential of this pit, and then deeper down some bigger CRD targets that would be more in line with the Taylor Hermosa model. So actually, you can see the pit here if we're looking at my slides. This south pit is what was mined between 80 and 85, about 600 meters in strike length, and then about 300 meters behind it off the slide page here. So not a huge operation, but not small. And again, private land, really mining friendly town. I think this is key. Arizona is kind of known to be a mining friendly state. It does depend a little bit on which town you're in. So town by town, there's various people in obviously different communities, and Tombstone happens to be a community that is driven by tourism and really the Western lore, which is deeply tied in with the mines. And they're very supportive of mining. I think the potential community benefit from having a more significant operation in Tombstone would be very well received by the local workforce.
That's great to see. I've driven by there. I've seen the open pits before, coming up from Sonora, going through Bisbee, where there's a huge copper open pit.
I was in Bisbee last weekend looking at the geology. We did a bit of a field trip with some of our geos, and Bisbee's a beautiful town as well. Probably not as mining friendly. It's more historic buildings and more kind of a tour artisan sort of vibe to it. But Tombstone still got that frontier kind of mentality, I believe.
Yes, I agree. I think the artists took over Bisbee some time back and turned it into a bit of a place for them to hang out and do some art. But it is a beautiful area. But Tombstone,
we had a wonderful lunch there.
Yeah, wonderful place to visit. So I can see it is depending town by town around there. But this is a historic area, Tombstone, and it's a very interesting, rich geological area. So with the drill program that's it started up just now, the target amount of drilling you're looking to do, and how far will the ones at depth go down into?
Yeah, so we're looking to do about 2,200 meters over 10 holes. Now, it's give or take. If we're down at our target depth and we're in some good mineralization, we'll obviously keep going. But generally, it's 10 holes at 225, running for about 10 weeks. So it's not the quickest drilling. We're drilling PQ cores, very wide diameter core. And the reason for this is that we do anticipate hitting some old mine workings, and the only way to continue with core drilling through mine workings is to reduce the core diameter and then keep going with if you go from P to then HQ to then NQ. So you've got the potential to get through 3 workings. And I do have an interesting slide in the presentation on 15, which shows where we've drilled with the RC hole and how putting in some strategic 50-meter step outs with the diamond with the diamond drill can potentially double the volume of material that we've tested. And really significantly here is that we can actually start to get into some of these potentially mineralized mantos down around the limestone beds below and around the water table. So this is where we weren't able to drill at the RC. And we do have extensive details of the underground mining, which indicate to us that, we know for a fact that they were down 1,000 feet or 10 levels back in 1915.
Wow.
And they were producing from the top 6 levels, but they were developing from levels, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And in order to get to those mining levels, they were lowering the water table by 400 feet by pumping out 6 million gallons of water per day, which is, it's not crazy today, but back then that was very, very significant. So that ultimately stopped not because they ran out of ore, but because the pump house burnt down, I think 5 times, or failed 5 times. And on the last failure, it was just, we can't do this anymore. So we're going to be drilling into some of those deeps where they were targeting presumably some bonanza grades of silver. And we've sampled bonanza grades of silver actually just in the pit. Really, really significant grades of I think about 100-ounce silver in the pit and a couple ounces of gold. So we're really excited about what we might find down at depth as we're expanding on the shallow gold oxide zone that we already know about. And maybe just to highlight a couple of the results that we already know that we drilled last year and the year before. Hole 22, this one was exceptional. We hit 65.5 meters of 2.44 grams gold and 66 grams silver in a shallow oxide heap leach type environment. And this hole actually bottomed in an intersection that was 7.6 meters, averaging 22 grams gold equivalent, which is, that's more akin to like an underground high grade than something that you typically see in a Arizona open pit or in Nevada. So, that was our best hole. But if down the list of our highlights, we have 96 meters averaging 2.2 grams gold equivalent, and the gold equivalent is just gold and silver, just so everybody knows. We're not mixing anything in. 32 meters of 6.3 grams gold equivalent, 70 meters 2.3, 64 meters 2.5, 40 meters at 2.76. This hole is interesting. We lost this one at 90 meters. We didn't even get to like 125 or 150. So this is one that we want to extend. And this one looked really well mineralized. So, not to bore the viewers with too many highlights here, but they were good numbers.
Yeah.
And on the whole, one of the better sets of data that came out of the Southwest US over those past couple of years.
Well, that's exciting to see that Alamos Gold is also interested in funding the company for this project as well to push forward. You said this is on patented land, so that makes it easier. What about the joint venture? Are you in control of? How's it set up? I guess with 75%, 25%.
Yeah, so it's a 75-25 joint venture where all the costs are split. We are the operator and we earn a fee to operate the entire joint venture. Um, Good, private partners out of the U.S. They've, to date funded everything that we've proposed. It's a very positive relationship, and these gentlemen have deep ties to the Tombstone community as well. So, some good social relations there by working with them, and obviously beneath them with many of the local members of the town. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's a very positive relationship that we are in control of with our 75% interest.
Excellent. So if we could just kind of close out today's discussion, what does the company look like in the marketplace right now? How are your valuations, and what do you look at some of the key drivers for this year to help develop a shareholder value?
Yeah, so we're with our financing, we're sitting at just under 95 million shares out, trading at about 26 cents Canadian, or about 19-20 cents on the OTC QB. And I note that we actually do see some fairly significant volume on the OTC QB, and I believe this story will be more visible to U.S. retail investors over the coming years. It's in their backyard. It's a silver district that many are just familiar with from Hollywood, to be honest. But we're sitting at call it a 25-26 million market cap, given any given close. We're funded for our drilling that we're undertaking right now. We have started to attract some institutional shareholding interest, in addition to the strategic investment by Alamos Gold. And the key question that you asked is how do we drive value going forward? And we have a very, very busy schedule of work and news milestones planned over the next 6 months. And it really just kicked off in early March with the start of this drilling. So we're going to have multiple results out from Tombstone. Then we're going to have results out from our surface exploration program at Cervantes. We're also going to have a drill plan that comes out of those results. Then we're going to have a drill program with 26 holes and multiple touch points to remind the market of the value there. And then ultimately, both of these projects should see 43-101 resource estimates towards the end of the year. So, that's in my mind, that's a very, very aggressive schedule that I believe we will meet. We've had a fairly good track record of basically hitting our milestones over the last couple of years, despite the relatively challenging equity markets since the last kind of 2020 gold and silver enthusiasm period. And I'm hopeful that eventually we get back to that sort of enthusiasm for the precious metal sector. But as we wait and hope for that, hope's not an investment strategy. We are going to execute on this game plan that we've laid out, and we're confident that we're going to accomplish those next 6 months of results and drilling and development on these two projects.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to see institutional support come in, seeing such a great gold mining company support you. You have it's a Canadian market cap of 25 some million, so about 20 million or less US there. You have cash, you're progressing the company forward. So it's an interesting period. I've been a shareholder for some years. It's my top five, at least top five, maybe top three positions in gold, silver exploration. So I'm quite excited for the milestones ahead this year. And we'll have to do an update and see how these drill results look from Tombstone and Cervantes in the coming quarters. So I looked forward, Simon, to following up with you on those. Good luck with Tombstone down there with the drilling. It's going to be interesting to see how the ones at depth show up as well, and developing the near surface oxides as well. So it's an exciting project. I'm glad that you're pushing forward with that as well. As Cervantes is an awesome project, but Tombstone is as well. I don't think a lot of investors have been really following that part of the story much. So and you see that, like you said, with Alamos Gold wanting to continue their support with the company. It's a great sign of support. So congratulations again on that financing. From a shareholder perspective, that's awesome to see a company be able to raise money without having to issue a bunch of warrants and finder's fees and all that. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you, Peter. Yeah, again, that was really awesome that our shareholders were so supportive, and we hope to reward them with some good results here. So thanks very much for the discussion today. I enjoyed it, and for your support in the market.
Likewise. And can you just share your website? Is it almosminerals.com if investors want to?
Yeah, at aztecminerals.com.
Sorry.
And then my email, simon@aztecminerals.com. So happy to field any inquiries at all. And even if you want to text me or WhatsApp, 604-619-7469. And all my contact information is on the website, and happy to chat with any investor, prospective or existing. Would be great to connect.
That's awesome. It's great to be able to speak directly with management, with executives at the company, and to take time to speak with shareholders. So thank you for that. And looking forward to the coming months. So we'll speak soon. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Peter. Have a great day.
You too.